Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Ian. Okay, I think we're all back. Good to see you all back again. We're having a few little heart attacks with digital issues because poor Ian, his machine has decided that he wants to do a complete reboot, which is not ideal timing, but it does often happen. It's the law of sod. So thank you very much for coming back. And this next little workshop, we have Ian will be talking about why websites matter. Now that may seem like a very blindingly obvious question, but they do matter. And people don't always kind of appreciate what they're there for. And then the second part, we have Steve Grant from Figment, who will be talking to you about understanding SEO. Now, and again, these subjects you'll be very familiar with, but there's far more to it. And I think Steve in particular is a fantastic expert on SEO. So what we're going to do with Ian, this is going to be an interesting combination. This is a new double act, which has just formed in the last minute. So if you can be patient with us a little bit, Ian is going to talk through his slides, and Steve is going to be his slide operator. So it's a new combination. So I will leave the floor to Ian. Ian, if you would like to start on why websites matter.
Thank you very much, Forbes, and apologise for putting us into this situation. Unfortunately, my PC is doing a Windows 10 update, and it seems to be a very large one. So, good morning, everybody. My name's Ian Watson from It's Easy Twickenham. I think I know most of you on the call, and I just want to talk to you about websites. And as the first slide there says, there has never been a more important time or a better time to get your website up to scratch, or if you don't have one, to actually just get a website in the first place. So, Steve, if you flick on, please. Right, I'm struggling to see what I've got on the slides here. The first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of why websites are so important, and especially at the moment. But over the last 7 months, we have seen a shift, a massive shift in an acceleration of what is going on in the online world. And the stats show that there has been a 49% increase in online traffic over that period. And more starkly so, there has been a 129% increase in people buying online. So traditionally, businesses that have not really sold online are now shifting their business to online because they don't have any choice. And Google are they rule the world in terms of the online world. 94% of all searches done in the UK are actually done on a Google platform of some description. And Google say that 50% of those searches are for people searching for local products and services. So the businesses that we have in the chamber, they're being searched for online every single day. More than half of what people look for are those type of businesses. Just a few of the little bits. 97% of consumers actually search online for something. 97, it's all, it's almost everybody. And 82% of those are using a mobile phone or some kind of tablet device. On, Steve, please. Right, so how do we fully take advantage of this accelerated trend in online presence? Well, one of the key ways to do that is you need a website, and you need that website to be content rich, so it's engaging for the clients that come, or potential clients, and informative. It gives them what they're looking for. Google have said that you only have 3 seconds to really contain people on your website. If your website isn't engaging, content rich, and informative, within 3 seconds they will have left and gone somewhere else, because the online world is very crowded. So you need to make sure that your website looks good. First decision, on Steve, please, is do I actually go for a DIY website? Do I do it myself? Have I got the capability? Do I want to? Or do I go the professional route and hire a professional who can create a website for me that really represents my business? And I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of the two. So if you move on to the next slide, I'll talk about the pros and cons of DIY to start with. So the pros, it's going to be cheap because you're doing it yourself, so you can take the time to do it, and you don't have to pay a professional, so it's a lot cheaper. And to a certain degree, you know your business better than anybody, so you probably know how you want the look and feel of your business. You probably know what the messaging you want from your website to represent your business, and you can create it in your own time. You know, you can do it to fit it around your work life rather than having to, you know, stop doing what you do for a living and start doing a website. But there are a few cons, and I've tried to list most of them here. We all need to remember that we're not creative necessarily. Some of us are, a lot of us are, but we're not web designers and we're not web developers, so we don't necessarily know the way to get that messaging across as well as we could. And it can take a long time to learn some of these platforms. There's a massive amount of different platforms out there, and you know, you choose whichever one you want, and it might take you a long time to learn that platform, and some of them are less intuitive than others. When I said earlier, you know about your business, you might actually know a little bit too much, in fairness, and you've become too close to it, and therefore you're possibly going to include more information than is relevant. And again, it might stop being engaging. It might become a little bit less creative and less engaging by having too much content there. Your website will likely be templated, because most of the DIY platforms are templated, and that can quickly cause it to go out of date. Website trends move very, very quickly. So it's important that you have the right website design. Design and function restrictions. Not all of the templated DIY platforms have all the tools and ability to have different creative things on your website. So you might be restricted in what you can have on there. If you do come to change it, you're probably going to have to start from scratch. So you could download the content, but you'd have to start the design process all over again. And adding functionality can add to the cost. So if you want to put a booking system on, if you want to put a shop site on, if you want to put a diary or something like that, any kind of what's called APIs built into the back of the website, you're probably going to have to pay a fee to the company to do that. And one of the key things I notice about people who do design their own websites is that they don't necessarily keep the security up to date. You probably get a security certificate with your website when you first buy it, but 12 months later, when it runs out, you probably forget to renew it and don't bother, and the website becomes unsecure, liable to be hacked, and possibly outside of GDPR compliance. It's important that you do have security on your website. And there will be very, very little support. A lot of these DIY platforms will support you via YouTube videos that you can download, and they'll show you how to do things, but there's nothing beats that expert training showing you how things should be done. If you so that's basically the pros and cons of a DIY site. If we can move on one slide, please, Steve, we can talk about the pros and cons of a professionally designed website. One of the key things is you can hand it off to someone. You can hand it off to a professional who is going to take all that hassle, understand all the technology, all the jargon. You don't have to do that yourself. And that does worry people a lot sometimes. And you know, you're handing it off to an expert who knows what he's doing. And the final product is going to be A+. It's going to be a great product. And if it's not, don't sign it off. Don't pay for it. You know, this is part of any design process, that if you're working with a creative person, you need to make sure that they are telling the story of your business and representing you in the way that you want it to be represented, and go through the tweaks and changes with them until you're happy that it is right, and then sign it off. It's normally a package deal that you get from a professional agency. You'll normally get domain, you'll normally get hosting, you'll normally get security, and at the end of the day, you will probably get a good level of support from someone who is going to be close to your business and understand it, and has an interest in your business, which is for me a key thing. Cons, well, it's not going to be free. It doesn't have to cost a fortune to get a good website. There are good quality, affordable agencies out there, but at the end of the day, they are working for you, so you are going to have to pay more than you would as a DIY. It will take a bit of time to get it right. The agency will want to spend time to make sure it does represent your business and has the right look and feel. And in some cases, not all cases, but some cases, you may not be able to do any modifications, amendments, and changes to the website yourself, which could be an added cost. You may have to pay another agent, the same agency, to do that work for you. That's not the case with all agencies. A lot of agencies will give it an open platform that you can actually train yourself how to do the amendments. And depending on the system, it could again be vulnerable to security issues, depending on the platform that the agency is working with. So from my perspective, a top tip is make sure that you're checking the online reviews of any agencies that you're thinking about using. Check that they've got good ratings with Trustpilot. Go on their Google My Business pages and see that they've got good reviews on there, so that that you can get an element of comfort that you can trust them in what they're going to do for you. Next slide, please, Steve. Right, so that's the first decision out of the way, but it's not the end of the story, is it really? Once you've decided whether you're going to design your own website or you're going to get a professional to do it, you need to decide what you're going to have on your website. Next slide, please, Steve. So I've just listed a few things that are important. So domain address, it is your website effectively. It's the name you give to your website. And I would advise if anybody out there doesn't have a website or is thinking of getting a new business or whatever, one of the first things you need to do is go on to one of the domain address registering companies and register the address you want, because there are millions and millions of people all over the world taking these addresses. It will cost you very little. If you've never had an address before, it probably cost you £1 to register address for a year. But it gives, it gets the address you want. And avoid things like numbers and hyphens, but get out there and do it now, because somebody else might take it before you get there and you lose the domain that you want. Copy. I think somebody later in the few days is going to talk about copy, but from my perspective, there's two choices. You either write your own copy or you have a copywriter do it for you. I do try very hard to persuade my clients to engage a copywriter. And the reason for that is that that's what they do for a living. They're experts at writing about people's business. They write it in a marketing speak way with good messaging, good call to action, and it will be engaging. You may know too much about your business, as I've said, but not necessarily great at articulating it. So I always advise that a good copywriter is really valuable. And the same with imagery, really. Imagery and videos, I'll link the two together because you've got three choices with imagery. You've got your own images, you've got stock imagery, and you've got a professional imagery that's provided by a photographer. It's often down to budget as which is best, but one thing you have to remember is that your website is your shop window and it will represent the quality of your business. So make sure the quality of the imagery you're using is strong and robust so that it does show your business in a good light. Otherwise it can detract from what you're trying to achieve with the website. Testimonials on a website for me are just an absolute necessity. Everybody wants to feel that they're comfortable with the business that they're using. So trying to tell people what other people think about you and your business is really, really important. Contact information, it's a given: address, telephone number, email address, social media feeds, so that people can always find you and know how to contact you. And a lot of that links into the call to action as well, that you may want somebody to sign up for a newsletter, you may want them to contact you, you may want them to book an appointment, you may want them to buy something, you may want them to take a demo, whatever. Make sure that you are selling that call to action through your website in a powerful way, that the text and the imagery draws the client to that call to action, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that client to engage with us in a strong way. Next slide, please, Steve. Thank you. So just sort of wrapping up a little bit, really. Above the fold, you know, your website needs to have visual impact. It needs to engage with the people that are visiting. The content needs to be relevant to the message that you're delivering and the product or service that you're selling, so that when the client comes through Google onto your website, they are instantly engaged. Because like I said, if they're not, 3 seconds later, they're probably looking at your competitors. Clear to the point messaging. How can you help them? How can you deliver the service and the product that they are looking for in a very concise way? Good call to action, and again, contact details. Next slide, please, Steve. So how do we adopt to the new norm? You know, as I've already said, over the last 7 months, there's been a massive acceleration in the change that was already coming. We're seeing the closure of physical shops and establishments out on the high street. And we're seeing a massive change in businesses that traditionally weren't necessarily thinking of online, but they've had to. And some of them have been very successful, Aaron. I mean, how many gyms do you know? How many personal trainers do you know that are now offering online courses? You know, and I was in a breakout room earlier with a psychotherapist who would probably have never dreamed of doing Zoom therapy sessions, but now that's the norm of her life. And you know, this is the new way of doing things. Hairdressers selling appointments online and selling products. Farms, you can actually have a box, farms and grocery shops, you can have a box of goods put together for you. Everybody, you know, is capable of having an online presence and should have an online presence to drive their business growth. Next slide, please, Steve. So key takeaways. You know, again, I'm reiterating the message. Online activity has accelerated massively recently. Your website is effectively the only online medium that you have full and absolute control of. All of the other online mediums will be controlled by the platform that you're operating through. So it's important that your website is the center of your online world. Your website is your shop window. Steve's going to talk a little bit later how you get people to walk past your shop window, which is the second part of the story and another key important part of it as well. And I just want to leave with one final thought, really, that go online and take a look at your competitors' websites. Are they better than yours? And if they are, what effect is that having on your ability to engage with new clients? Because if their website's better than yours, it's going to be better at engaging with new clients. So you could be losing business because your competitors are investing more in their digital online presence. Next slide, please. And that's it from me. Just a final point is that I do write a lot of blogs on subjects like this, and there's a blog address there for my blogs. If you need any further details, there's a host of information on that site that can provide you with help and guidance and tips to improve and bolster your online presence. So thank you very much for listening. Ian Watson from It's Easy, Twickenham. I don't know whether we're going to questions or whether we're going to a breakout room. Forbes, I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Steve, would you mind? There we go. You've done it. Thank you very, very much. Some really very, very good points there, Ian, and I appreciate you and Steve working together in slightly difficult circumstances with the connection and everything else. I think we are about to go into little breakout groups. But I thought what was very interesting was just the, again, I reference my age and feeling old sometimes, but this whole notion that things which we always used to think couldn't be put online really are now more accessible. And I do think that you've said about sort of psychotherapists or people who do yoga and Pilates, people are being far more creative, and that barrier of thinking, oh, it's not really going to work, has really fragmented. So I think it really has given us this opportunity to really think, actually, I can go online, I can do all these things. And as Ian said, the website is a good portal. I did like the photographs of yourself, by the way, and that's a very good example of using a professional photographer. So
Thank you.
You're doing what you preach.
Big shout out for Andrew.
Very good. Very, very good. Okay, we're going to go into the little breakouts again. And if you just want to, if there's people there that you're not so familiar with, just briefly explain what you do. And just let's talk about the websites. Just talk about what is it that you think, does your business, can it utilize the websites more? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? There's a very good, the pros and the cons of doing it yourself or getting an expert in. So just share some of your stories about websites. Before I just go any further though, because it does tally in, we have Katerina Dankova, and I'm delighted that IQ and IT are the sponsor for this program. So in terms of connectivity, security, and it's an issue which Ian did mention, security for websites and anything digital is really, really paramount. We do a lot of work with the Kingston Council during this lockdown period, and the issues of security, scams, and everything else is really on the march. IQ and IT know their stuff inside out. So we're delighted that they're sponsors. And it's really as this kind of glue to everything which goes on. Security, connectivity is really, really important. So again, delighted that they are sponsors. So Amanda, can you do your usual magic and ping us around?